etc. Okay, let's get into China and all of the things that are happening in China. Trudeau's trying to stay ahead of this scandal that keeps expanding, and he's not staying ahead of it very effectively at all. Brian Passafume says, whoever had former Governor General David Johnston as their pick for special rapporteur, come forward and collect your prize. Yeah, I think that Poilievre should appoint his own special rapporteur to compete with this one. Our special rapporteur will be public. Here is the process that Kirky thinks the special rapporteur goes through. It's a 3-step process. Actually, Jeff Harris says, 3-step process. Step 1, write out the conclusion that the special rapporteur will come to. Step 2, pick the special rapporteur. Step 3, have the special rapporteur present the pre-written conclusion from step 1. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate to what we're going to see. Stephen Tyler says, Trudeau would have chosen himself as rapporteur to investigate himself, but he didn't like the workload. Oh, ba-dum-bum. Stephen Tyler says, new rapporteur just dropped. Prime Minister Trudeau has named former Governor General David Johnston as a special rapporteur to look into the allegations of Chinese interference in Canada's last 2 federal elections. More coming. And Stephen continues. He says, uh-oh. And David Johnson is a member of the Trudeau, the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation. So that's a red flag, right? That's not so good. And the Trudeau Foundation had to return $200,000 to Beijing-linked donors. So compromised. Brian says, in news that couldn't be less surprising, to me at least, Trudeau has appointed a former Governor General, David Johnston, as the special rapporteur to examine Chinese interference allegations. Johnston seems an obvious choice if you wanted to avoid allegations of partisan favor. No. I just thought it was funny. It's not an obvious choice at all. Is David Johnson too close to these leaders to be able to lead an investigative probe into Chinese election meddling? Well, let's see. Here is, people smiling and being familiar like that's kind of usual. Oh, okay. So here, David Johnston is smiling with Xi Jinping, the current and third-term president of China. Leader of China. We'll just say leader of China. Here is real Andy Leach highlighting some more concerning connections with Johnston. David Johnston appointed special rapporteur by Justin Trudeau. Quote, it was during his time in that role that Johnston, became acquainted with Pierre and Margaret Trudeau, and the Johnston children played with the Trudeau children when the families were at their adjacent cottages in their Laurentians. Sounds lovely, right? Wow. So this was during when Johnston was appointed as the Dean of the University of Western Ontario Law, and he was serving between 1974 and 1979, at which time he was elevated to become the 14th Principal and Vice Chancellor of McGill. And that's when he got to know Justin Trudeau as a child, right? Pretty crazy. Here's Justin Trudeau talking about how close he is to David Johnson. He sees him as a friend. This is a minute long. So minute-long Trudeau warning. Here we go.
I've always known him to be a man of strength, intelligence, and compassion. But getting to know someone as a family friend or a friend of your father's is very different from having the honor of working alongside them. So it has been a true honor since the beginning of my mandate to come to know the Governor General not only as a friendly neighbor, quite literally, but as a man of integrity who embodies the principles for which our country stands. His Excellency has dedicated his life to public service. Whether it was at McGill or at Rideau Hall, his career has been marked by his willingness to give back to a country that has given us all so much to be thankful for. On behalf of all Canadians, I need to express my deepest gratitude to their Excellencies for their many contributions to Canada. Together, you have made this country an even better place to call home. Merci, mes amis.
Thank you, my friend. Merci, mes amis, right? So pretty wild. Here's Ferryman. He likes to make he makes memes, and he's very good at that. And on the left is the video I just showed you. Trudeau thanks close friend David Johnston for serving as Governor General, and this was 2017. And National Post says Trudeau names former Governor General David Johnson as special rapporteur on foreign interference. So that's, pretty wild, right? Here's bootlicking Spencer Fernando, and he says, just so we're clear, David Johnson there's a T in there, Johnston, was appointed to Governor General by Stephen Harper in 2010. What does this mean? It means it's all one big uniparty. They're all the same. Well, the pedigree of David Miller, crept in there for a quick second. I don't know why. David Johnson, being the dean of McGill and being appointed there by who he was appointed there to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know necessarily as a slam dunk saying, yeah, that's one big uniparty, because Harper likes lawyers like that, and you could see that as reaching across the aisle or something to that effect. But it is concerning. It is something to point out. It is very, very interesting that one of the best friends of the Pierre Elliott Trudeau family gets appointed as Governor General by Stephen Harper in 2010. It's weird. It's a little weird, right? Don't you think? Andrew Coyne is waking up. He still has his Ukraine flag in his profile picture, which is just hilarious, don't you think? I'm so Canadian. I've got a Ukraine flag in my profile picture. He says, in all of Canada, the Prime Minister could not have found someone who is not A, a lifelong close family friend, B, a previous appointee of his, C, a member of the Trudeau Foundation, or D, the chair of a foundation that received millions from the Trudeau government. Unfortunately, we've got a prime minister who doesn't take seriously allegations of Chinese interference in our elections. And when that allegation comes to light, he appoints a family friend to investigate him as many times and as often as the Canadian public will allow him. Pretty wild. Maxime Bernier says Trudeau's independent special rapporteur on Chinese interference, David Johnston, is a member of the Trudeau Foundation, was a friend of Pierre and Margaret, and his kids were playing with Justin and his brothers when both families were at their adjacent cottages in their Laurentians in the 1980s. He actively inferred and interfered in our elections by unjustly excluding the PPC from the 2021 debates. But don't worry, he was appointed Governor General by Harper, so he's totally a nonpartisan appointment. Right? That's the excuse. They're saying, oh yeah, well, it's reaching across the aisle, right? Harper appointed him. It's perfect. It has nothing to do with Trudeau. That evil Harper guy liked David Johnson, so he couldn't possibly be friends with Trudeau. It's patently false, obviously, but they're hoping that most voters won't care. I think that's what they're hoping for. Rupa says the sheer brazenness of this Banana Republic territory, Trudeau is obviously convinced he can get away with it like he has so far. So yeah, Rouleau was the same thing. Nobody got upset about Rouleau, really. The backlash was minimal and everybody accepted, yeah, it was fine. Why? I don't know. You got me. It's very interesting. I guess they'll toss you in jail for protesting drag queen story times in Calgary. So, why not, with threat of jail, just accept everything they tell you to accept, right? It's just unbelievable. It's true though. That's what they're trying to get to the point. You're not allowed to speak out. If you speak out, they'll arrest you for hate, even though they're themselves being hateful. It's wild. Laurie Goldstein makes a really great point. Daryl's saying of David Johnston, tell me someone who's been partnered with all sides of the political spectrum, never for personal or political reasons, that has more credibility than anyone in Canada. So he's saying, oh yeah, this guy's, he's worked with everybody. Why not appoint him to be the special rapporteur? And Laurie Goldstein says, you're perpetrating the myth that the process Trudeau has created out of thin air for investigating whether China interfered in our elections has any credibility to begin with. Appointing a friend as an advisor to tell him what he should do isn't a serious attempt to be credible. Right. It's not. So this is why I think that Poilievre should appoint his own special rapporteur and just absolutely lambaste what's happened. He could appoint an advisor, a close advisor, a really obviously like a politically bent somebody, and use that to use a mirror or to hold a mirror up to Trudeau, what Trudeau's doing. Or he could appoint an honest rapporteur. I don't want to give credibility to the process because it's not credible. You can't have a compromised government investigate itself with friends of the compromised Manchurian candidate and then expect to not be disappointed in the results, right? When the Chinese communists investigate themselves looking for Chinese communists, I don't think they're going to find any, right? If that's what they don't want the report to say, they're not going to find any. So it's one of those things. It's just wild. And so I don't want to give any credibility to this process at all. And I think making fun of it would be one of the best ways to do it. And making fun of it by the official opposition would be hilarious. I hope Poilievre does it, but who knows? Holly Doan says, only a public inquiry will restore Canadians' confidence that elections are fair. I think that the CCP is going to call for the public inquiry. They're lining up a vote, and this is what this news is about. The CCP and the Bloc MPs said yesterday opposition parties are expected to formally vote for an inquiry as a parliamentary order. It is a blue pill fight. It is not an honest fight. It is something to chase our tails. It's a rouleau commission. It will buy them months and months and make people think that something is happening while the Chinese communists continue to run our government. I think it is a distraction, and it is absolutely not going to get to the bottom of anything, period. We're not going to, at the end of this whole thing, if there's a public inquiry, if the parties all band together, if the NDP votes for a public inquiry, it will not find anything of value, and it will not lead to the downfall of Justin Trudeau's government. The Trudeau government should fall now, and the inquiry should happen after they're held for questioning, right? You can't question the prime minister for treason, I don't think. You can remove his power and then question what happened, right? Anyway, I don't know, man. It's complicated, but I don't think that having Trudeau investigate himself with a close family friend is going to yield the results that anybody wants. Holly Doan reports this as well. MPs face witch hunt under any public inquiry into election interference, claims parliamentary secretary. So they're fighting Katie Telford. They're fighting any inquiry. I think it's one of those things, art of the deal. You ask for more than you think you'll get, right? And when you settle at what you're willing to accept. And they're willing to accept a public inquiry, but they don't want an RCMP investigation. They don't want an honest investigation. Maybe a special rapporteur would be a police officer, or like a high level, not Bill Blair, but some, a respected police officer, high ranking respected police officer. Who's the guy? The police officer, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and I apologize for it, but the police officer who was in Justin Trudeau's security detail and left and joined the Freedom Convoy. That'd be a good guy to appoint as a special rapporteur. But any respectable law enforcement person investigating this or something to that effect, that'd be an interesting thing, right? Appoint your own special rapporteur. And anyway, the MPs face a witch hunt under any public inquiry into election interference, claims parliamentary secretary. MP Anita Vanderbilt says she's safe since she's of Dutch descent, but fears Chinese Canadian Liberal MPs face ruin. So it's very interesting that they're talking about the concerns of backlash from the Canadian citizenry because of not getting to the bottom of this, but they don't want a public inquiry because it'll be a witch hunt into Chinese citizens. And personally, I am not more inclined or less inclined to think somebody of Chinese descent is working with Chinese communists. Justin Trudeau is not Chinese descent, as far as I understand it. But he's very, very, as far as I understand the history, communist pedigree. So that concerns me for Justin Trudeau. It's not the color of your skin. It's the ideology you subscribe to. And if you believe in communism, if you believe in Chinese CCP style communism, then you shouldn't be in our government, right? And it has nothing to do with skin color. So this person thinking she's safe from what exactly? I think that if you've done something to harm Canada through partnerships with a different country, you shouldn't be safe from anything. You should be culpable. You should be responsible. There's issues with that. It's against the law. It's treasonous. You can't do that kind of stuff. She thinks she's safe? What? Because she's not Chinese? People from China understand the dangers of the CCP, and they speak out, and they get ignored. So it's very interesting about that. It's really interesting, the kind of casual racism. Well, I'm not Chinese, so I'm safe. But, those Chinese MPs are at risk because of a public inquiry. The Globe and Mail says China's consulate interfered in Vancouver's election, CISA says. I'm not sure how a special rapporteur can look historically at Chinese interference in 2021 and 2019 while we've got ongoing Chinese interference in municipal elections, Vancouver. That's pretty wild. So how can you stop something if you hire a contractor or somebody who fixes dams and there isn't a dam, right? You have to stop the water in the first place to build the dam. If the dam's leaking so much that you can't repair what's happening, then you have to like strip it all you have to stop the water. And the water in this case is the Chinese communists. And we're not stopping the water. We can't fix the dam, right? The dam's busted, and we've got a special rapporteur who's trying to use a magnifying glass to look through water as it flows by. Ooh, there's a Chinese communist, and there's one too. Ooh, okay. So it's a very... It seems like we're not interested in actually stopping the problem. We're just interested in getting the Canadian public moved off of the problem of Chinese interference in our elections. Here's Terry Glavin. This is an opinion piece from the National Post. It says, pliant liberals have helped China embed itself in Canada. Something rotten has spread through this country's corporate sector, universities, and political class. Yowza, that's a lot of Canada that's been infected by all of this. National Post says, with all of their filibustering and obstructionist rapporteur maneuvers to draw attention away from the interference operations Beijing ran on their behalf during the 2019 and 2021 elections, and it appears is still running, the Trudeau Liberals might think that they're being clever, but they're being too clever by half. The longer this drags out, the more light gets shed on the squalid and intimate relationship between the Liberal political base in this country's wealthy and well-connected Mandarin bloc hierarchy and the Ferrari-driving consigliere of Beijing's strong-arming and influence-peddling network in Canada. It's the same circle of power. Slowly but surely, Canadians are beginning to understand what so many brave Chinese Canadians have been warning about all these years. See? Slowly and steadily, the public is waking up to the alarms rung by Chinese political exiles, Hong Kongers, Tibetans, and Uyghur refugees, and by the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. But it is a dispiriting education. It's the brazenness of it that's so galling, the flaunting of impunity in a thriving social scene of dodgy casino high rollers and senators, Chinese diplomats and targets of RCMP money laundering probes, MPs and mayors at banquets and ribbon cuttings, weekend barbecues and campaign fundraising parties. So yeah, it's pretty wild stuff, man. What's going on looks legitimate to some degree, and you get, if you try and find out about it, and a big guy in sunglasses in a dark suit puts up a red velvet rope to prevent your entryway or something like that, you're not going to question it too much. It looks like a legit political event. But maybe, just maybe, China has embedded itself so much that this has become just run-of-the-mill, day-to-day, right? The money laundering in the casinos, all of that stuff is happening and so rampant that people don't look twice when senators don't answer questions about it. Senator, what about the money laundering? And then the cases fall apart. Chinese interference is rampant, and a special rapporteur, especially David Johnston, he's not going to get to the bottom of it. It's pretty wild stuff. All right, let's get into the banks. And just one more thing on China. I think that I don't know that this is going to bring Trudeau down. If they're able to start the rapporteur process, then there's going to be no reason to drop the government. If Jagmeet Singh is allowed to get away with supporting a public inquiry and not bringing down this government, I think they're going to get away with it. Because what's a public inquiry going to bring to light? There was Chinese interference in the election. Oh no. We all know that now, and that's a problem, right? So anyway, it's a problem. I don't know how it's going to play out. It's very interesting, and I'll keep telling you about it because it's wild. Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching. Check out CanadaPoly.com or CanadaPoly2.locals.com for full episodes of Canada Poly Daily, looking at Canadian politics from a Canadian point of view. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a wonderful, wonderful